Ladies and gentlemen, I am the Dark Horse, John Bonhart, and this is the Sit Down Marks podcast.
Hey, yo.
If I can be serious for a minute.
Oh, yeah. Acknowledge me.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome. Come on in. Sit down. Episode number 135 of the Sit Down Marks podcast. It's your boy, DB. We got a nice little matinee edition for you today. Happy Friday, by the way, if you're watching live right now on YouTube and Facebook. And if not, happy whatever day it is if you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and, of course, everybody listening over on SportzWire Radio. I want to thank all our friends over there at SportzWire Radio for checking us out. Man, I got a treat for you today, guys, man. You know, like I said, it's a matinee show, so snuggle up, man. Grab some lunch. Do what you do on your lunch break and check out this podcast today, man, because I got a good one for you because this guy's kind of like he's kind of new on the independent scene, you know, in years, I guess you should say, but in my eyes, not really, because I've kind of seen this guy work a lot, and I've kind of seen the maturation of everything that's going on with this guy. So it's time to ride with the Dark Horse, everybody. Please welcome for the first time, John Bonhart. What's going on, brother? How are you?
I'm doing real well, man. I'm doing real well.
So what's
Glad to be here.
So what's a heel Johnny Bonhart doing on a Friday afternoon here during lunchtime?
Oh man, I'm just hanging out around the house. Find something that needs to be done. Gonna get it done.
That's cool, man. I appreciate you taking the time today, man. So always good to talk to you and see you, man. So we know that John Bonhart is, well, maybe some of us know, maybe some of us don't, but we're going to find out. Where'd you get the name John Bonhart from? It's not your shoot name, so how'd you put that one together?
So it's a combination of two things. The Bonhart is directly taken from a character in The Witcher that is just kind of this incredibly ominous character, this absolutely terrifying presence. He's like a top of the line hitman. And I was like, that's cool. I'm going to take that.
Gotcha. Yeah, that fits.
And then John is just, I mean, it's a real easy name for everybody to remember. It's a single syllable and you want to have a 3-syllable name, that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And then it's also taken from John Marston from Red Dead Redemption.
Gotcha. So you're a gamer?
Yes, sir.
Oh, we got to talk a little bit of games, man. You Xbox guy, PlayStation? What do you got?
PlayStation and Nintendo.
Nintendo. Like Switch, or are we talking?
Yep.
Yeah.
I grew up with the first console I ever had was the old NES. We got an N64, then we got a GameCube, then we went over to the Wii, and it's always been there, man.
Yeah, man, me too. I grew up on those games just like you're talking about too. I still have my original NES that I fire up every so often just to get the nostalgia part of it. But I'm looking over and my kids are playing all the same games on Switch, you know, and it's awesome. So it's kind of rejuvenated. So that's cool, man. So that's how the name came together. Where'd the Dark Horse come from?
The Dark Horse is a little bit more convoluted. I mean, there's the term like a dark horse to make it into any given sports playoffs.
Sure.
Dark horse to win a given championship, that kind of a thing. And
right,
that always
like
kind
underdog,
of resonated.
yeah.
That always just kind of resonated with me. You know, it's the guy who's not necessarily an underdog. At least, like I don't see it that way. It's more like a guy who could definitely make it, but he's not the guy that everybody's looking at to do so.
Sure.
You know.
Sure.
And I like that kind of the chip on your shoulder kind of a thing that brings with it.
Right. And the dark part of it kind of fits into your heel persona.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're a heel in every promotion, right? You're not a face anywhere else, correct?
I mean, there's a couple of places that I do work.
Yeah, you're tweening a few places. Yeah, all right, cool.
Yeah. Right. JWA up in Wisconsin, and then usually when I do AAW live, I'm usually face over there.
Right. So you saw wrestling you saw Lucha Libre on wrestling when you were, or on TV when you were young. You saw Lucha Libre wrestling on TV when you were young. You saw another story I've heard you tell is you saw there was like a storyline with Rey Mysterio and the Great Khali, with when Khali was like theoretically crushing people's skulls.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So this is what got you into wrestling. So
yeah, man.
So what fired it up after that?
If we're talking like after that, once it kind of
once you knew what it
my
was,
attention, what really, really just hooked me in was watching like early 2000s indie stuff, late 90s Japanese stuff.
Dope.
And then just kind of seeing that there's this whole world of wrestling outside of the WWE, outside of what, most people think of with wrestling.
Yeah.
And it just, all of that just really intrigued me, It was like, it's kind of like when you listen to a band that kind of popped off after about 10 years, going back and listening to their older work. It's kind of like that,
Yeah.
And then looking at, like, especially when it comes to Japan, it's like most Americans have no idea just how much history professional wrestling has over there.
Right.
But it has had, like, if people think the impact of professional wrestling has been pretty big here in the States or down in Mexico, it's on another level in Japan,
Right.
I mean, Antonio Inoki was one of the most popular politicians in the entire country. And he also just happens to have been, one of the godfathers of pro wrestling over there,
right.
And one of the most influential figures in the sport.
Right. So who'd you latch on to? Like, who was your guy or girl? Like, who's you really watching?
So when it comes to Japanese wrestling specifically, it was Mitsuharu Misawa, Kenta Kobashi, Marufuji, Kenta, guys like that. And then it was like the Dragon Gate style, the New or the Noah style.
Yeah.
How there's just a lot of very different, very unique, just everything over there, whether it's presentation, in-ring work, the crowds are different, the commentary is different.
Yeah.
All of that just really, really hooked me.
Yeah. I watched Misawa and Terry Gordy. I watched that match from the 90s. I think it was like July 1st or something like that. I can't remember what it was. Like, it pops up on my YouTube all the time. Like, I watch that match all the time, and like, I'm always fascinated how wrestling is presented over there. Like, even then, you know what I mean? It's like such a big deal.
Mm-hmm. And I really love the way, especially then, they don't do it quite as much now, but the way gaijins, which would be like American wrestlers, were treated over there. Like the way they held up a Stan Hansen, a Bruiser Brody, a Steve Williams. The way these guys were presented as just absolute, just monsters,
giants, right? Yeah. Like, they were legit scared of them.
They were, terrified.
Yeah.
I remember this clip of Stan Hansen coming out, and he's got this bull rope, and he's swinging it over his head, and he's got a big old thing of chaw in his mouth, and he's just spitting all over the place, and the crowds are literally running from this man.
Right.
And I'm like, that's art, man. That's awesome.
Yeah. I always see like Bruiser with the crimson mask running, and like there's just people just running everywhere. Like, nobody wants to be even close to him. I always remember those, man. It was crazy. So who's your guy? Like, after you obviously you're hooked now. You're watching WWE past Khali and Ray. Like, who's your guy in WWE? Like, who you're watching stateside?
I was a big Edge guy growing up, which, as a kid, being that much into this incredibly dastardly heel is kind of odd.
Yeah.
But I loved all of the matches he was in. There was a gravitas to it. Everything was built up to this. There was 2 or 3 matches beforehand that built up to this match.
Yeah.
There was, the ongoing story that he was always involved in, whether it be with Vicky Guerrero or John Cena or Randy Orton or Shawn Michaels or whoever. He always had a very well fleshed out story, and he always had a big impact on whatever show he was on.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't even see anything about Edge until the Cena era. So then going back and seeing like everything he did at like WrestleMania 19 and with Christian and with Brood and all of that.
Yeah.
Like that's one of the reasons why Edge is just my guy, because he evolved throughout his career.
Absolutely.
And he was always relevant, and he was always a highlight on whatever show he was on.
Yeah, yeah. Always a big deal. All right, so you're watching this wrestling. You decide, okay, I think I want to give this a go. I'm going to head to the Black and Brave Academy. And you ended up there. Why'd you choose this one in particular?
So we kind of jumping ahead a little bit. I did start training before going to Black and Brave a little bit. I was training at this place called Pro Wrestling Revolution in San Jose, California. But I started training there in January of 2020. So everything got shut down.
Right.
Like 2-3 months into that. And I was loving it. You know, I was picking everything up incredibly quickly. I was having a blast doing, just working, getting my butt kicked all the time, all the physical work that we were doing. And just, being around people who were chasing the same dream,
Yeah.
So then COVID hits, everything gets shut down, that gets taken away. I kind of go through some personal life stuff, decide it's time to get out of my hometown, kind of branch out a little bit. I move up to Seattle thinking, I've heard Defy is pretty big up here. At this point, Darby Allin was starting to get on my radar. Swerve Strickland was, and I know these guys are from Washington. Daniel Bryan, of course, is from up there. So I was like, okay, maybe there's, a school up there or something. So I started looking around, and there were small schools, but most of them weren't running anymore, or they were, now defunct, or there was some sort of immense controversy surrounding it. So I was like, I'm just going to avoid all of that.
Yeah.
So then I start looking around the country, seeing where I could possibly go to get trained, because I'm like, I don't really have any ties to this area, I've got some friends up here, but it's not like I've set roots down or anything like that. I can upend myself and move wherever I want. So I'm looking at different schools. I'm looking at Create a Pro. I'm looking at Knox Pro. I'm looking at Lance Storm at the time wasn't really running anything, but I looked into that. I was looking into Booker T's school, and what I finally found Black and Brave, and I was like, okay, they're connected to a promotion that's been running for a long time, that's not dependent on the school.
For sure.
That's great. They offer housing. That's great. I'm moving across the country. I don't necessarily know how I'm going to be, getting housing arranged, getting a job, all of that. I wasn't 100% positive on all of that. I was just trying to get out here, and then on top of that, there was a whole list of guys who had gone through that were either in the area or just around the country, who were starting to make a bit of a buzz, starting to make waves, and I really liked a lot of what they were doing. So it just made the most sense in my mind to come here.
Sure. Yeah. Did you know about Seth Rollins being one of the coaches there? Was that part of the influence?
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. He did the Stone Cold podcast, like literally a week after I put in my application.
Right.
And he was, he had the Black and Brave shirt on during that. And I mean, obviously I knew he was involved, but like seeing him kind of plug that at that point on that stage, I was like, okay, this is the right choice.
Right.
And I mean, obviously very, very few people in ring are as proficient as he is,
Right.
Very few people can cut a promo as well as he can. Very few people have evolved the way he has, going all the way back to when he was Tyler Black. He's evolved all the way throughout his career.
Yeah.
And, that's always something that I've respected. Not just from him, but from everybody in the business. You gotta evolve, you gotta grow, you gotta change with the times, you gotta do what needs to be done, so to speak. Right. And he's always done that,
So before we get into your wrestling, you obviously graduated the Black and Brave Academy, and you're off to the races now. But they have this little thing called Day Zero, where they try to weed out the not so serious applicants, I guess you say.
Mm-hmm.
And funny story, you did not know there was such a thing, and you had to go get your physical like the day of, right?
Yes.
To qualify. Tell me that story real quick.
So I heard about the conditioning test maybe 3-4 days in advance, and I was like, oh, okay. I mean, I'm in decent shape. I'm not worried about that. I know I can
Sure.
push through a lot of things. I'm not worried about that in the slightest. And then a lot of the people who were going to be doing it the night beforehand, we kind of got together, and I think we were playing like Uno or something like that. And then it came up that like somebody asked, like, "Hey, so everybody's got a physical, right?" And I'm just sitting over there like, "Physical? What? I didn't know anything about this.
Yeah.
This is brand new to me. What do you mean physical?" So I was like, "Yeah, like you will be turned away if you do not have a physical. You cannot do day zero if you don't have a physical, and if you don't do
Right.
day zero, you can't go through the course. You're done. You're dropped. You're gone."
Yeah.
So I was like, "Okay, well, I'm not gonna let something like that stop me."
Right.
So I started looking around to see, what clinics were open, who offered what kind of, physical or whatever. And luckily, there was a place about 10 minutes from where I was staying that opened up about 3 hours prior to the test. And I was like, all right, I'm going to get in there as soon as the doors open and just pray we can get this done. Luckily, got it done. Everything was handled. Oddly enough, I'm pretty sure a lot of the guys must have gone there to get their extra work physicals done because they
Right.
had the WWE forms. So I was like,
Right.
okay, well, I know that'll cover all my bases.
Yeah.
We'll be good to go. But yeah, I had to wake up at like 6 o'clock in the morning to go get that taken care of.
Yeah.
And then as soon as I'm done, I'm basically getting ready to go do 4.5, 3 hours, somewhere around there, of just super intense CrossFit workouts.
Right.
So I'm in a funny, headspace and all of that.
Right. Like,
But then
I barely
we get
made it
into
in.
it. We get into it, and I'm like, oh my God. We're about a half hour in. I'm like, this is already some of the hardest workouts I've ever done in my life.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
we're just getting going,
Right. I've seen this scenario where like the door is closing on day zero and you're like running up there with your paper and you like barely get your finger in the door and they let you in and like, all right, you made it. All right.
Yeah, something
So
like that.
yeah. All right. So you graduated, man. Tell me coming out of academy, what were your fears going into wrestling? You're like, okay, now I got boots to the ground. I got to show my face in promotions, set up rings, that kind of stuff. But, what were you thinking coming out? Like, were you nervous at all about wrestling?
I think I went into it with a very level head. I was like, I know this is going to be a grind. I know it's going to be a ton of work. I know I'm not going to see a whole lot of the fruits of my labor until, years from now,
Yeah.
I mean, you get a little bit before that, but realistically, you gotta be going for a couple of years before things really start paying off for you.
Yeah.
I was incredibly lucky. Not a lot of people get on at a lot of different promotions pretty quickly, like I was able to, which I will chalk that one up to a lot of the guys letting me just jump in cars with them and go with them
Sure.
to shows.
Right.
I mean, that's how I got my very first booking. I just hopped in a car that was headed to Kansas City, went 5.5, 6 hours, helped set up, helped tear down. Everybody who was there liked me, liked them, liked my look, liked the way I carried myself, how much I was working at actually, doing whatever was needed to be done at the show, whether it be, running entrance attires into the back, setting up the ring, tearing everything down, setting up chairs, organizing chairs, making sure there's water and whatnot in the back, that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Um, so I think to actually answer the question, because I just went on a tangent,
What's that?
I think the only thing I was kind of apprehensive about is like I hadn't worked in front of a live crowd, so I didn't know
Sure.
if what I was doing would resonate with them.
Yeah.
Yeah. At that point, I'm still fleshing everything out. I don't even know what it is
Yeah.
that I'm doing at that point. I know I've got all these influences, and I want to kind of meld them together as well as I can.
Right.
But other than that, I'm just learning on the job,
Yeah. So tell me about like graduating Black and Brave and then to SCW, because I mean, not everybody that graduates makes it on the SCW shows, right? You know what I mean? So like,
Right.
tell me like what that transition's like. Is it just like, they're like, hey, we want you to, act like you're, trying to work for another promotion? Is it come in, set up, that kind of stuff, or they already kind of know you a little bit? And how does that work?
I think it was a combination of a lot of factors. They liked who I was as I was going through the course. I took everything in stride. I put in the work. I didn't complain about nothing. I stuck around after the course was done, continued to help out at SCW shows, and then I was also getting out and trying to go other places.
Right.
Like I got my first match in Kansas City 2 years from tomorrow, oddly enough.
Oh, cool.
And I just sent the tape in to Merrick, and he was like, "Okay, I like what you're doing here. Let's give you a chance."
Yeah.
And he threw me in a little match with Crotch, one of the other trainers.
Sure. Seasoned veteran.
Very seasoned veteran.
Very seasoned veteran. Yeah.
He's 65, 70 years old. Been in the business for about 45 years. He's
got the hair
to
prove it, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was probably nice
to prove it.
Yeah.
But and then after that, it was kind of just a matter of we got to find a way to keep me on the show, and I just kept showing up, kept being consistent, and basically since January of what year would that have been? 2022. 2023, 2022, I believe. No, 23. 22? Doesn't matter. Basically, since that match with Crotch, I've been consistently on every single SCW show.
Yeah. Probably the perfect guy to have a good first match with, because he's going to walk you through it, tell you what, you know what I mean? Like lead, seasoned veteran, and so it's probably a good spot to be in for you.
Yeah.
First match.
Well, first match in SCW, my first match was with a cat named Juno Granger, who works primarily in Kansas City, but he was kind of an Oklahoma guy.
Okay.
But he'd been around 5, 6, 7 years, something like that.
Yeah.
And personally, I'm grateful that my first match was against a guy like that rather than a guy who had trained me, because when you're getting out and you're trying to go to all these different shows, that's the kind of person you're going to be working with.
Sure. Right.
Especially early on, you're going to be
not
working with guys.
Quality.
Yeah. Not guys who know everything that you're capable of doing.
Right.
So
tell me, man, what do you like? You like being a heel? You like being a face? Which one do you like better? And what makes you enjoy one more than the other?
So I know this is going to seem like a cop-out, but I honestly don't enjoy one more than the other.
Okay.
I enjoy getting a crowd invested as quickly as possible and as much as possible. So whether that's coming out in my entrance and just, shitting all over whatever some random audience member is wearing, how they look, how they're responding to me.
Right.
Or whether that's coming out and hyping up everybody who's around me, whether that's whatever it is that I got to do to get them hooked, that's what I love doing.
Right.
And it's all those small things that aren't like it's not the moves, that kind of a thing. Right. It's the crowd interaction that I love. So whether that's trying to get them to hate me or trying to get them to love me, as long as they're bringing it, that's what I love. There's nothing worse than working with a crowd that is just sitting on their hands no matter what it is that you do. And I've definitely been there a couple of times.
Yeah.
And it makes it so much harder.
Right.
Right.
But how fun is it when the whole crowd is engaging, though, right? Like, that's when it's like...
Oh, it's incredible.
Right.
Words can't describe it, man. Words can't describe it. I mean, you've been there.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I'll tell you this, just to kind of jump ahead, man. You popped me so hard when we were at the we were both working Iron Spirit Pro. You were in the main event with against Solomon Tupu for the title. It was on Sunday, actually day 2 of Sweet Corn Circus. And you know, like a lot of times, like I come out and watch your interactions, but I was actually on one side of the ring when I was letting you guys get in the ring, and I actually could hear, you know, and there was this guy out there. He was, oh, you're gonna get your. You probably know who I'm talking about already.
I know exactly.
He's like, oh, you're gonna get your butt kicked, man. You ain't winning the title. And you turn around like the most, like you've did it a gazillion times in every town. You look at him and you go, I'm about to walk out of here, the champ. I think you said something like, and I'm going to take your girl, in the meantime, or something like that. And then like, so you said something like, you're going to buy me a sandwich afterwards or something like that. Like, I was just dying. I'm like, oh, he is full blown in this thing now, man. You're feeling it, man. It was so money. It was so money.
Yeah. And I mean, that crowd was alive the whole time we were out there. It was great.
Yeah,
there was.
You never know about these festival crowds either. They're either hot or they're not. I feel like so.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes they're just passing by, like, oh, what's this little oddity going on over here in my festival? Sometimes they're like that, where they're gathering an hour before the show starts, and they're like, let's go, let's watch some wrestling.
Yeah,
let's have a good time.
Pump for it.
Yeah.
So now, man. So now you're getting some momentum. You said 2 years since first match. Is that right?
Yeah.
All right. So 2 years is actually, you're actually doing really well for the 2-year mark. You get momentum. Like I said, I think I told you, like, to me, being the like older guy watching this product now, I guess, I feel like when somebody, like, I've watched you, I've watched a lot of these guys, straight out of the academy, and the working, and then, I see working matches, and then all of a sudden one day I'm watching you wrestle, and I go, he's not thinking anymore. You know what I mean? Like it's like I gotta say this all the time, like to independent wrestlers, there's like a certain point when you get to a certain point, right? And you don't know when that is, but like a switch flips, and like all of a sudden you're just smoother looking in there, and like you're to the spots you're in the spots without running to them, if that makes sense. Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like you're thinking way ahead, but in the same sense, you're not thinking, you know what I mean? And I think I told you it was against, not 100% sure. I think it was your match that you had with Dustin Mosley. I think it might have been the first one at Iron Spirit Pro, and we went back in, and then like after the show, and I'm like, dude, I feel like you like graduated, because all of a sudden, like, I felt like you were, everybody's janky in the beginning, everybody's thinking, everybody's, constantly like, okay, this move next, but like, I feel like you've really gotten better in the last like 6 months, at least 8 months, call it. Like, like I said, I don't think like you're thinking anymore. The progress is showing. That probably takes, it just comes from experience, comes from working, and then so fast forward now, like we were talking about, your match with Solomon was fucking fantastic, man, because you guys doing exactly what you need to do. You already had the crowd hating you before they even saw Solomon, and a lot of those people probably didn't even know who Solomon was or even what he looked like. Maybe there might have been, like, I don't know, a quarter of that crowd that I recognized from the shows, but a lot of those people were new fans that I hadn't seen before, just festival goers. And so, and it was a smooth match. You even had to work with the heel of your boot coming off during the match, So, and I'm just saying, I could just tell that the transition of you as a wrestler is changing. So to get to this, do you feel it? Do you feel like, okay, I've arrived now. I'm getting bookings. I'm in some good storylines. You've got a manager in SCW, now. So, so all these things are kind of clicking. So does it feel like everything's kind of coming together for you right now?
I feel like I'm definitely starting to catch my stride, that kind of a thing. I wouldn't say arrived just yet.
Sure,
I think
sure.
I've still got some more work to do. Some things I need to hammer out, with my
I
look
like
and
your
all of that.
humbleness.
But I definitely feel like it's it's like you said, it's not thinking as much. It's
Mm,
just it's being more organic with what you're doing. It's having confidence that you're going to be able to get off everything that you're trying to do.
right.
It's knowing that even if you don't, you and the other guy are going to know how to cover that. You're going to know how to just move on, get to the next thing.
Yeah.
You're not going to get hung up on every little thing.
Yeah.
And that absolutely comes with practice, with repetition, and with fucking things up.
Right.
You don't fuck it up, you don't learn.
Right. Right. You
You
don't.
know.
So, what's your favorite match so far? Like, who have you felt like you walked away going, man, I'm proud of this one?
Um, I mean that's kind of a hard question because I have had a lot of matches where I'm like, this was a good one.
Okay.
I learned from this. I grew from this. I got better because of this.
Right. Right.
And we did a good bit of business here. So I'm just gonna shout out my very last match
Okay.
because this was a very interesting circumstance. I showed up at a show and a carload of guys who were on it. It was at a Destination 6 in Macomb.
Oh, yeah.
Showed up. I wasn't expecting to get nothing. I was expecting to just show face, talk to the promoter, see a lot of the people that I knew because I knew probably 2/3 of the people on the show.
Yeah.
And then maybe see if maybe we could get something done in the future. Well, it turns out somebody drops out, and about an hour before doors open, actually not even doors open, before bell time, they're like, "Yeah, you're on. Second match, you're working with the guy's name was Gavin Parker. Never met him. He's a dude from the middle of Illinois.
Yeah.
I literally didn't meet him until we started like getting ready.
Talking about the match.
I'm putting my gear on, and he comes up and we start talking.
Wrestling.
And yeah, wrestling. Right? And we put this thing together. Everything was incredibly smoothly put together. It was everything. We meshed really well, just kind of talking about what we're going to do. And then we go out there. We, from the gate, have that crowd just in the palm of our hands. We execute everything that we wanted to as smoothly as we could have.
Sure.
Crowds reacting to every little thing that we're doing. They hate me. They love this fresh little baby face. And we get into the back and we start talking, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm not quite a year in." I'm like, "I'm not quite 2 years in." And we just went out and had, one of my better matches for sure.
Hell yeah.
And
That's
it was
awesome.
just like that was one of those moments where I was like, all right, things are clicking. Because it's one thing if you can go out there and you can do something like that with somebody that you've trained with, or that you've had 6-7 matches with, or that you're constantly interacting with. This was a guy that, I mean, like I said, I didn't meet him until I was putting my boots on.
Yeah.
Then we went out there and we had, like I said, one of my better matches for sure. So that's one that I'm real proud of.
That's dope. And what a lot of people probably don't know, Destination 6 has a 6-sided ring, right? So Have you worked one of those before? Was that a little different?
Nope. That was the very first time I'd ever worked in a 6-sided ring. First time working in a church.
In a church, right?
Fun fact. So Destination 6 is actually originally from Hillmar, California. Oakdale, California, my hometown, is about 25-30 minutes north of there.
Okay.
So it was also my first time working for a California promotion. I'm gonna count it. Even if it was in Illinois, still counting it.
Yeah, for sure. So did they move the promotion out here, or did they?
I don't know.
Maybe
I don't know the specifics of it, but so the venue is entirely just like, as far as I'm aware, it's just them there. There's nothing else that ever runs there. It's no longer an active church. It's just their venue. Right?
Yeah, I'm a little familiar with Macomb. a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they have, all these posters inside from previous shows. And that's actually how I found out they're from California. Because I saw one and it was from like 2019 in Hillmar, California. And I'm like, huh.
Small world, kind of.
Yeah, I was like, this show literally ran 30 minutes from where I was living at the time.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about SCW real quick, man. So you're having fun there. You've had a little bit of success. I don't think you've won any titles yet, but you've definitely won the QC Cup, if you want to talk about that, and talk about what it's like to work with Mark Storm.
So to pull it back a little bit, the QC Cup is technically a title there.
Okay, gotcha.
It's treated like that. It's not like you won a tournament, you've got this. It's something that's regularly defended.
Right.
So
okay.
it's treated,
that makes sense because just renewed it not long ago, right? Because it was kind of old. Yeah. All right. Gotcha.
Yeah. I think it was like my second or third match. We got a new cup.
Yeah.
And we actually we did this whole thing where it was Mark Storm presenting it to me.
Yeah.
Like I walked out with the old cup. He brings up the new one. And it's this whole big thing, and I like toss the old one aside.
Sure.
I think I literally threw it at the referee, grabbed it, and I acted like I was handing me the Super Bowl trophy. And I was like,
right.
This is Lombardi himself's trophy.
Right.
That kind of a thing. I was real into it.
Nice.
But yeah, working with Mark has been absolutely fantastic. He took some time off from the business, and he hadn't done anything until he and his daughter started coming to shows and started seeing, what the current product was. And I guess he got the itch to come back. I guess he saw some guys that he could help work with. And at that point, the booking team was like, all right, we want to start taking me to the next level. How do we do that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, historically, one of the best ways to do that is by giving somebody a manager. And that's very much what SCW has done with Mark Storm since, I don't know, I think he was around in the earliest days.
Right.
So he'd managed everybody from Merrick to Colby to Marcus Crane, and I can't for the life of me remember who his tag team partner was.
Mm-hmm.
But those guys, all kinds of different people who've always been like elevated just by having him as their manager. And they're like,
sure,
here we go.
Yeah.
And at first I was like, okay, never had a manager before. I've interacted with Mark a little bit. We get along fine. This is going to be a fun little challenge to kind of figure out how we meld together. And it was instant, pretty much. We met up for coffee before our first show together and
cool.
talked about things.
Yeah.
And it's been a fantastic relationship since.
Dope. That's super cool. So let's talk about Iron Spirit Pro, man. That's where I've known you mostly from. It's kind of, basically from, the first time you showed up to set up a ring there to now, getting on the card, decent amount with singles action, and you get a little tag team action there occasionally with Nasty Nick Nolan, and you guys together are the Nasty Hearts. So do you like mixing in a little bit of tag team? Is that kind of fun?
Oh, I absolutely love tag team wrestling. Yeah. Tag team wrestling is probably my favorite.
Okay.
Because there is so much, there's just a much more intricate element to a tag team match. There's a lot more to work with. There's a lot more toys in the toy box, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I absolutely love being in a tag team, doing tag team wrestling, working with other tag teams who have been together for so long, who have all of these, intricate ideas. Yeah. Like I remember our very first tag match was against Bang and Matthews, who, for those of you who've never seen them, are how do I even describe some of the things these men come up with? They're insanely innovative. They
circus-like.
Yeah, they're like acrobats.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, acrobats.
They're like if Jackie Chan was an acrobat.
Yeah.
They are absolutely incredible. So my very first tag match working with those guys, it was like, this is a huge challenge for me. Because if I remember right, it was about 5 months after my first match. First tag match I'd had. These are two, they're right on the cusp at that point. I think literally the next weekend they went to New Jersey for GCW. And it was like, working with them made me really realize that there is so much more you can do in a tag match. There is so many more, ways you can put things together.
Yep.
There's so many more possibilities.
Yeah.
And the match that we had was, especially at that time, was one of my favorite matches that I'd ever had, just because everything flowed so well. The crowd was invested. They were happy with it. We were happy with it. And then, Davey Bang somehow managed to get everybody a bunch of wings after the show. So, like, that was just such a great experience.
Yeah, man. I remember that.
Yeah. Oh, those wings were so good. They were fantastic.
I believe I can't think of the name of the place, but where they came from. So, yeah, so you're getting in some tag team work, which is fun for you because, while Nick's, handling business in the ring, you're handling business outside, talking shit to everybody in the crowd. So, that's always fun. And I think it's a good angle for you. So, so how you feeling, man? Like, you had any bad injuries? You had any small injuries? That kind of stuff. Like, how you feeling? You sore after the weekends?
Sometimes I'm definitely feeling a little beat up on a Monday, but I take care of my body pretty well. So there's nothing too lingering. I have had a couple of minor injuries, couple of months back, and this wasn't even from wrestling. I was just in the gym working out, and I did something to my bicep to where I couldn't really like carry any weight in my left hand.
Yeah.
But that just kind of went away after a couple of weeks of just slow rehabbing it.
Sure.
And I had something similar to that happen to my right shoulder. I had two scramble matches on back-to-back nights, and I was catching just an asinine amount of dives in these matches.
Right.
And somewhere in the course of that, somebody landed on me weird, or I landed on the ground weird.
Yeah.
And just jacked my shoulder up to the point where like I almost had no strength in my right hand.
Right.
Which as far as I'm aware, it was like a pinched nerve, something like that.
Yeah.
And that also just went away after about a month or two. But it hasn't been anything that I've had to take time off of or anything. Sure. And then of course I've had, bumps, bruises, black eyes, cuts, this, that, and the other.
Mm-hmm. So what's the end goal for John in wrestling? You want to contract somewhere? You happy, chilling on the indies? You want to, a lot of people answer this question by saying, I just want a job in wrestling where I don't have to have a real job.
And that's kind of my answer to it. It's like, I want to get to the point in professional wrestling where I can just be a professional wrestler.
Right.
I want to get to the point where I'm not filing taxes for a day job anymore.
Sure.
I'm strictly doing that independent contractor thing.
Yeah.
And I'm open to whatever form that takes. If that's traveling across the country, traveling, out of the country, if that's I happen to just stick in a promotion that pays exceptionally well and where I can sell a ton of merch, whether that's I get endorsement deals selling, Bucked Up or whatever. Whether that's getting on streaming somehow, some way, that's always been something I've been interested in, just haven't had the tools to do.
Yeah.
Whatever it takes. If that's signing a contract somewhere,
sure.
I'll do whatever it takes to get to that point, honestly.
Yeah. Have you done any extra work with anybody?
I have not.
No security guards and all that kind of stuff. You do, though. I've seen this. You do quite a good many. You attend quite a good many seminars, right? You've been to a good many seminars that people have conducted. Yeah.
I've been to. Let's see. I've been to a Sammy Callahan, Jerry Lynn, Ken Anderson, Rhino, Steve Manders. And then I've kind of sat in on a couple of others to just kind of hear how other people think about the business.
Yeah.
But it's one of the best things you can do, in my opinion, especially early on, is
Yeah.
get in front of somebody who has a fresh set of eyes, a fresh
Yep.
mind, has a different way of looking at things,
Yeah.
can give you different feedback.
Yeah, I think so too, man. I always say, outside of, of going to school and academy, this is kind of a way to re-educate yourself, looking at wrestling through, different minds, and I always think that's like one of the best things you can do to reinvest in yourself is to go to these seminars, whether it's, a legend, somebody like Jerry Lynn or something, and then, or even somebody, that's, just started doing them, just the, the knowledge and the mindset you can get from, all different people that have been, all different kind of facets of wrestling, so I always think that's good. So, and those things too, like, might not always pay off, early, you know what I mean? I always think those always kind of pay off late, you know what I mean? Because at some point you come back to be like, oh, well, yeah, I remember when Jerry Lynn was telling me about that, or Sammy Callahan or something, that you were in. So, you said you're accountants, right? That's the shoot job?
No, I work as a line cook, and I also work security for a local casino.
Okay, nice. So that's what you do in between, and they're pretty flexible with your wrestling schedules on the weekends?
Yeah, so it's not necessarily a matter of like flexibility at this point. It's kind of like I've got a set schedule that lets me have my weekends always open,
Right.
which is absolutely perfect for me, honestly.
Right.
Like, I basically work a short shift on Mondays, and then Tuesday through Thursdays, I'm working, 12, 13, 14 hours between the two. And
Yeah.
then I've got my weekends open.
Nice. So tell me, John, what's your favorite thing about being a wrestler? Like, what's the part you just you're like, man, I'm so glad this, because I love this part of it.
Oh, man,
I mean,
it's
give
hard
me a
to
few.
list.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was about to say, it's hard to list off just one.
Give me the reasons.
I love getting on the road with people. I love those 3-4 hour car drives with a good car load, where
Yeah.
we're just, we're talking the whole time. We're shooting the shit. We're, cracking jokes, listening to music, doing all that kind of thing. I love, hitting up a late night fast food place afterwards when everybody's starving at like 11:30 midnight, and we're just going to town on as much unhealthy food as we possibly can because we're starving.
Yeah, because everybody ate healthy or hardly anything before the show, right? So
Yeah,
you're looking
and we're
good
like,
out
all
there.
right, we need some carbs, we need some fat, we need a little bit of protein. Let's get it.
Yeah.
I love getting to a show and meeting all of these different people. I love putting a match together with somebody, especially if it's somebody that, like, I'm not particularly familiar with, figuring it out, piecing the puzzle together. I love, even after a match, getting to back and getting feedback from other people, or talking to my opponent about, what happened during the match, whether it's, are you okay? Did this go right? Did this go well? Did this, hurt too much? Did I squish you with this? Did I clock you with that? There's a lot to it, man. I love after a show talking to fans,
Right.
I love sitting at the merch table and just, kind of ribbing kids a little bit.
Sure. When we getting the John Bonhart merch?
It's coming. It's
in
coming.
the works.
Now that
All right.
Yeah. Now that I'm starting to get a little bit more money just from working the two jobs, it's coming. It's coming.
Sure.
I've got a design for a shirt. It's just a matter of actually getting it printed out.
Okay. Nice. Speaking of the miles, man, what's the go-to music in the car? And let me preface by saying this. I think one of the first times, if not the first time, that I met you, maybe the second time, you had a Deftones shirt on. Automatically, you're speaking my language because it's my favorite band in the world ever.
Mm-hmm.
And so we got talking about the Deftones and music, and I know you're a big Pantera fan. Dimebag Daryl, So who else you listening to on the road? I know like if you're in the car with other guys, everybody's got to either be happy with something. But let's just say John's in the car by himself. What's he listening to?
A drastic departure from Pantera and Deftones. I listen to a lot of Zach Bryan when I'm driving by myself.
Okay.
But then I also listen to like the Ghost Inside, the Plot and You. This little band out of California called Syndria.
Okay.
Big shout out to them. They're one of my absolute favorites.
Nice.
They deserve to get a ton more publicity because they're just fantastic. I'm listening to like In This Moment.
Okay.
A lot of the times it's, who's dropped something lately. Like for the last couple of car rides, I've listened to the new 4 Year Strong. The new Ghost Inside. That's actually where I got my new song from, Death Grip, which I think is just an absolute banger.
Right.
I can listen to that endlessly. And then every now and then, I'll switch it up a little bit with like Jedi Mind Trick or Cruella, which is an EDM band.
Mm-hmm.
I like to mix it up a little bit, but for the most part, it is kind of that metalcore. That's kind of the thing that's the most common when I'm behind the wheel.
Sure. I'm pretty excited because Deftones just announced a North American tour for early 2025. So picked up some tickets to go see them. So I'm pretty pumped.
Oh, right on. Where's that going to be at?
Actually, they're doing the rounds up here. I bought tickets to see them in Indianapolis. They're doing Indianapolis, Chicago, Detroit, Columbus, Ohio, I think, all in a little closest around here, I think, anyway. I don't know if they're, but like they literally just dropped the concert list. I think it was yesterday, something like that. So, yeah, I'm pretty pumped to go see them. So,
yeah, I've gotten to, not to cut you off, but I've gotten
to
see them 3 separate times, 3 very different venues, very different concerts.
Yeah.
And man, they deliver every single time.
They do. I could probably say at my age, I've probably seen them close to 20.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
I'm an old cat though. Like I think I seen them on for the first time on the Around the Fur, which was their second album.
Oh yeah.
Tour. So that was like 90s, I think, something like that. But so on the road too, man, you're riding down the road. What's your favorite road snack?
I really, really enjoy a protein bar.
Okay.
That's I think it's Metro RX. Metro RX is the brand. They have this crispy apple pie bar that's just absolutely fantastic. It's got a ton of protein in it. It's got, a good chunk of carbs in it. It's and it tastes fantastic.
Right.
So that's kind of been my go-to. Other than that, sometimes nuts, like a Blue Diamond.
Yeah.
Nuts.
Almonds. Yeah. I'm a big almond guy. All right, buddy. A couple more questions, man. And we're going to talk PWI 500 and I'm going to get you out of here. Have you had any like bad fan interactions? Like, have you ever been like talking shit to a fan and they got like too serious on you? You had any of those incidents yet? You'll have one eventually, but you had one yet?
I think the worst I've had is like genuinely upsetting kids.
Sure.
There was a couple of kids who I apparently made cry without realizing it. And like I didn't have any interactions with them, but then later, like at shows after that for the same promotions, their parents have come up to me and talked to me about it.
Right.
And that's always kind of a bit of an awkward thing because it's like I can't really dial it down,
Stay in character here. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like I can't like avoid interacting with that kid going forward.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, well, what do I do? You know? But I wouldn't say anything have been like actually bad in experiences because they usually understand like it's part of what we're doing.
Anywhere on the indies you haven't wrestled yet that you want to wrestle?
I'd like to work more outside of the Midwest.
Sure.
I'd like to get, you know, over on the West Coast, West Coast Pro. I really would love to get on over there. Knox Pro in SoCal, Defy up in Washington, Progress in Oregon, um, Future Stars of Wrestling in Vegas. Um I'd love to get out there. I'd love to get on the East Coast. I'd love to be on a Wrestling Open or
Yeah.
Beyond, or a little bit farther south, like an Action or an Invictus, something like that. And then here in the Midwest, I'd love to make it onto a freelance. I'd love to go to Glory or St. Louis Anarchy. Um, I'd love to work a Grandel show. I know they only run like once a year, but it looks like an absolutely amazing venue.
It does.
Looks like
cool
every
venue.
show is just
Yeah.
so cool, right? That the Grandel Theater, it's
Yeah.
gorgeous.
Yeah.
I'd like to work for like a World League of Wrestling. That'd be really cool to get onto. Yeah, no, I'm probably missing it. I'd like to get out to Ironheart. I went to a show there last month, and it was a really cool vibe, really cool locker room. All the matches were great. Crowd was good. I'd like to
Yeah.
make it out there. I'd like to make it like in a first or a second.
Sure.
Those are two promotions that I've seen a lot out of, and it would be great to work for.
Yeah.
I'd like to make it up, outside of the States too, obviously, but I'm not going to go rag on all those promotions that I'd
Sure.
like to get to.
Yeah. All right, man. Before we talk PWI 500, I got to ask you a little question, man. I had one of your buddies on the podcast previously, a guy by the name of Solomon Tupu, your current Iron Spirit Pro champion. He was referring to you as the Salamander Man. Would you like to elaborate on that at all?
I wish I could. I really do.
We can't talk about that, huh?
No. It's literally a matter of Campbell Myers, one half of the Premier,
Right.
just start like they would be on FaceTime together when we were living together.
Mhm.
I'd walk in and and Tupu would be like meal prepping or something like that. I'd
Sure.
come in from work and he'd be in the kitchen. I'd walk in, everybody on the call would see me. Campbell Myers would yell out, "The Salamander Man!" And I would just be like, "That's me, I guess." And like I've talked to him about it, and they're like, "I don't know, man. It just fits.
Yep.
It just works. You're the Salamander Man."
Oh, that's funny. Let me ask you a personal question, man. As a fellow bald-headed guy like myself, what do you use, man? You going straight razor on that head, or you got some kind of little fancy hair cutting contraption you use?
I use just a hairy shaving club, 4-blade razor.
That's what I use. It's spot on. I feel like it does the best of any. Like when I'm done shaving, I don't feel no hair. It's straight skin.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's
and then
cool.
I like to use I believe it's Vanderschaft is the brand, shaving butter.
Yeah,
because it moisturizes the skin, leaves everything feeling smooth. It doesn't like feel like it's like clogging up the razor as I'm shaving or anything like that. But yeah, hairy shaving club for the razor, shaving butter.
Yep.
That's all I use.
Yep, same here. I was going to recommend it to you if you wasn't using it, but I'm glad you're already using it. So, all right, man, last thing before we go home, man, the PWI 500 just got released in Pro Wrestling Illustrated. I think it's one of those things where it's like, it's really cool if you're, if you're able to make, this list at some point. Tell me, do wrestlers have aspirations of making this list, or is this kind of one of those things where it's cool if you do, but not so bad if you don't, kind of deal?
I think it's very much a matter of like, if you get on, that's definitely a certain amount of validation that what you're doing is getting some people's attention. People are recognizing what you're doing. But at the same time, it's like, there's only 500 spots.
Right.
How many thousands of wrestlers are there in the States?
Right.
And how many thousands that will never even be looked at by something like that just because they don't run in the circles where they're as visible.
Sure. Yeah.
And probably some of the best talent in the entire world will never show up on something like that just because they they're not under the right spotlight to be seen by a PWI.
Right. Yep. So I'm gonna play a little game with you, man. I'm gonna call out some names of your wrestling peers that were in the PWI 500, and I want you to guess what number you thought they ended up at. Let's start with your buddy first, Solomon Tupu. Where'd you think?
Oh, he was on it?
He was on it this year. Yep.
Wow. I'm gonna guess 461.
Get out of here. You're super close. 469. Yeah, very good.
I was actually gonna guess 469, but I was like, nah, that's too funny.
What about
That's
Gary
way
J?
Too funny. Gary J. 415, 416.
Close again. 446.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And Hartenbauer.
Wasn't he in like the 470s, 480s?
This year he was 445, just one above Gary J. He was
Okay.
411 last year. So, all right, getting into the 350s or below. Mad Dog Connolly.
320s?
350 exactly for him.
Okay.
Alley Catch.
Alley Catch. Oh, she's got to be. I'm probably going to be way over ranking her based off of the fact that it seems we're going descending. 130s, 140s?
245.
Okay.
245. All right, now we're getting in 200 or less to give you a little more of a ballpark here. Jake something.
Oh, he should definitely be higher. I don't know. If I were ranking it, he'd be top 20 personally.
Yeah, he's 147.
147. That's way too low for him.
What about Marcus Mathers? Where do you think he came in at?
Mathers. I'm gonna say based off of Jake something, he's like 105,
140.
140.
140.
Okay.
And then Megan Bain right next to him at 139. Where do you think Warhorse came in at?
Man, because he really has been taken off lately. I don't know when the cutoff is though, so that kind of makes it a little bit.
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
More difficult.
What's the criteria cutoff?
Yeah, I'm gonna say 115, 116,
132.
132. Okay.
Yep. We got Effie in at 122, and then the last two, a little close to home here for you. What ranking was one called Manders?
I feel like he was in 105, 106.
115, so pretty close. 115. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Really, really awesome to see him get that ranking. And the last one, man, is the boss. He was number one in 2015, 2019, and 2023. Where did Seth Rollins rank this year?
I had to take a little bit of time off, so that probably dinged him a little bit. 7, 8?
4.
4, okay.
Still at 4. Yep. So still hanging in there. Like I was because they always put your previous rankings from I think the last like 10 years or something, and I was surprised. I mean, not surprised, but like still impressed that he was like 3 times at number one. That's got to be kind of a record, I guess. So
yeah, he's got to be getting close to at least tying it, right?
Yeah. All right, John. Well, buddy. Man, I really do appreciate you coming on the podcast today. It was good to finally get to sit down and talk to you. I want to thank everybody listening on SportzWire Radio and everybody listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Audible. And I want to thank everybody to go check out all of our library of podcasts. And I want to thank the Dark Horse, John Bonhart, for joining us today. Go check him out on all his social medias. You'll see him basically in the Midwest quite a good bit. John, where you got SCW this weekend, which would be Hawkamania, September 21st. But outside of that, man, where can everybody check you out at?
I will be with Zawa Live at the end of the month. I think that's the 28th. The 27th, I'll be at JWA in Janesville, Wisconsin. I will be going to WrestleMax in Columbia, Illinois, October 12th. The following week, I'll be showing up, hoping I get on at AAW. I've been doing a live there for a little bit, so hopefully get in there. And then basically, if I'm not at one of those, I'm at SCW, or I'm at Iron Spirit, or I'm, I should be at D6 again, I believe later in October.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have the calendar out in front of me, but I think those are most of my upcoming dates.
Awesome, man. Well, I just want to commend you, man. You're doing exactly what it takes to make it, man. And I'm always going to be pulling for you, and just keep grinding, brother. Big things are on the horizon for you, man. So I'm a big fan of yours. You know this already, and just wanted to tell you keep working hard, man, and things are going to happen for you. So I want to thank you for coming on today, brother, for sure.
Hey, thank you for having me, man. It's been a great time, and it's always good talking to you. I know you've been in my corner basically since day one. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Can't thank you enough, man.
Yeah, man, for sure. All right, everybody, check out John Bonhart, man, Iron Spirit Pro, all over the Midwest, SCW Pro. And I am the Dirty Bird. I want to thank you for joining us today for the Sit Down Marks podcast. I'll be back here, thinking about 2 weeks, man. I'm going to be sitting back down with Sean Galway, talking about seeing how he's doing in his recovery. So make sure you want to check that out. So I am the Dirty Bird. He is John Bonhart, the Dark Horse. And we'll see you guys next time. Top guys out.